Again, the big news today, talks on climate change. And I recently asked former Assistant Secretary of State Kurt Campbell about what role China and the United States can play in leading to a cleaner, greener world.
Look, I think there has to be a recognition that globally, that unless the United States and China take on this issue decisively and take responsibility for it, it's very hard to get progress with other countries like India and Indonesia and other parts of Asia and Europe. And so at the core of any architecture for engagement on the issue of climate change, it requires that the United States and China recognize that they take a responsible approach and take on the burdens of what leadership will require. Now, President Obama is doing what he can in the face of a Congress that's just unprepared on the Republican side at this juncture to deal with this issue. And I think the Chinese are starting to take some steps in terms of investments and energy-efficient technologies, but ultimately both the United States and China are going to have to do much, much more.
There was a recent UN report that talks about the rise of the South and emerging economies, Vietnam, Brazil, just to name a few, and how as they grow, there will be a growing middle class, a demand to get more cars, and that carbon emissions are just going to explode. And by 2050, we're going to have a huge problem on our hands. Do you agree with that? And how important is it for these two countries to take the lead on this?
I would go even further than that. I don't think that the set of circumstances is sustainable without urgent, fundamental engagement on these issues. It's not simply a case that we'll have some adaptation and some modest changes that we'll have to make in our lifestyle. No, what we are contemplating, if we continue on this current path, is climate changes that put at risk some of the key fundamentals that support global society. And that's a worry.
I think that both sides would agree, China and the United States, at the recent summit between President Xi and President Obama, that was successful. How do you build on that this week?
The fact that the two leaders decided to meet early in their tenure to make a point of the importance of U.S.-China relations is critical. But now it's really left to the government of both sides to implement areas of common purpose and engagement. And that's really what the strategic and economic dialogue is about. It takes the key components of our government, the strategic side, foreign policy, defense, cyber-related issues, and also the economic issues, macroeconomic policy, investment on both sides, and trade, and basically puts it in motion. And the preparation for these yearly events is intense. It lasts months. And frankly, the stakes could not be higher.
You use the word engagement, but this is really deeper engagement. This is really the nitty-gritty of government, isn't it?
It is. And what people don't recognize is the number of really senior-level policymakers from across government who are involved. I've been involved in meetings between the United States and China where there are essentially hundreds on each side. And these are people and institutions involved in critical components of energy and environment and education and healthcare, and they are engaging with their counterparts in a way that basically shares best practices, learns to dispel distrust, and build on sort of common areas of engagement. This is where you are building a larger cadre of people on both sides who understand the parameters of the U.S.-China relationship. So it's very important. It's a critical component to the highest level diplomacy that you started with respect to President Xi and President Obama. But the relationship has gotten so complex and so multidimensional that it requires a larger engagement across both our societies, not just in government, but in the private sector, to sustain cooperation going forward.